are you and your money in and out of South Africa during December, the silly season? With me in studio today, I have Adib Abrams, the branch manager of Al Baraka Bank in Athlone. Welcome, Adib.
Assalamu alaikum. Pleasure to be here.
Adib, sadly, the end of year holiday season always brings a spike in bank and bank card and cash related crimes. People let their guard down, they are disturbed, they are distracted by noises, they are overwhelmed by the crowds. What advice can you give to people with regards to keeping their money and their cards safe at this time of year?
Look, I think, just as much as people look forward to their bonus at the end of the year, we must also be aware that the perpetrators during the year are devising certain plans and mechanisms to access that hard-earned cash, that you've actually worked for. So, and like most banks do, they give you advice on how to protect your card and when approaching ATMs, what one should do. But I think, because it's, like you said, it's the festive season, it's December, everybody's in a relaxed mode. It's up to us to be vigilant in the way we transact. So whenever we have a bank card in our hand or we're dealing with cash, we need to be aware of our surroundings, where we're at. For instance, if you want to go to the ATM, make sure that you are alone. You'll always read in the newspapers about people being distracted or people loitering around at the ATMs. So, those kind of situations one must avoid. And also, one needs to understand the ATM where the location is and not put yourself and compromise your position of putting yourself, making yourself a target. Another thing also what banks have done is that they've created an opportunity for people to draw cash at retailers, where you can purchase goods and most foodstuffs. And if you need cash, you can actually draw the cash from
there. And that actually circumvents the situation of you having to go into a darkly a lit area and having to go and withdraw cash in the middle of the night somewhere in an unsafe, unsecure area.
And it's cheaper as well because the cost related to that transaction is minimal, and like you rightfully said, it gives you a peace of mind knowing that you in a group of people where there is visibility and you're not isolated. Also, one needs to be, there's a practice that whenever you use your ATM card, make sure that when the card comes out of the machine, it's your card. Make sure that when you give your card to a retailer where the ATM, the point of sale machine is probably not portable, that you go with the card to make sure that you see the transaction from the beginning to the end. We mustn't take things for granted, and like you said at the beginning, we become relaxed as festive with spending, and so but we need to make sure that we're vigilant in the way we apply ourselves when dealing with our hard-earned finances, because like I said again, there's so many schemes going around, and people are probably employed to distract you, and because people are also trying to look for money and make money the easy way at the expense of people who have earned the money through hard work during the year. And one needs to hold on that, and obviously bonus is something to be enjoyed, but also one needs to be very disciplined in the way you transact and the way you spend your money.
Also, it is one thing to say that South Africa is rife with crime, but like you've rightly said now, criminals plan for crime, and it is criminals all over the world who plan for crime in the festive season. So when we look at that, for those who are lucky enough to be traveling overseas, are there certain do's and don'ts where banking is concerned? Should people be taking all their money and putting it onto their bank cards when they go overseas? Should they be keeping some cash aside? What are the advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, look, I think that probably is a very personal choice one has to make. I know of people who have gone overseas and have taken all their money in cash. The reason for that possibly is that if I got 50,000 rand to spend and I get X amount of dollars or reals or euros or pounds, whatever the case is, I know what I'm paying up front. So when I leave South Africa, I've got my foreign currency paid for. You could take a card without cash and use your card overseas at a point of sale transaction, and that transaction must still be converted to rands when it gets here. So one would then be at the mercy of the exchange rate, depending on whether it's favorable or not. And there's also bank charges related to that transaction. So your initial 50,000 could become 60,000, depending on the fluctuation of the rate. So to minimize that particular risk, people take cash. You could also then split between a card and a cash, because you need cash when you get there, when taxis and train tickets and other things that might, you want maybe have access to converting, you know, or using a card, whatever the case, to get cash out of the machines. So I think, you know, it's a personal choice, but one again, you know, one has to take precautions, and one has to make sure that you minimize your risk when you travel. When you say you get money bags, you get money vests, you get money belts. When you go to an overseas hotel, there is sophisticated safes that's very secure. So you could, you know, and it's another way of maybe disciplining yourself, that if you've got the cash in your safe and you're going out for the day, you're taking out $50 or something. Whereas with a card, your $50 might become $100 because you don't see the cash leaving your physical being. So that's probably another way of looking at a disciplined form of spending and making sure that you stick to your budget, because yeah, it could become expensive if you are flashing a card, because you don't really see the physical cash, you know, leaving you. You know, when you get back, you see your bank account, your own, you know, your credit card, and yeah, and it could exacerbate the situations as you go forward in a very trying economic climate as we speak. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Also, how important is it for people who are traveling internationally to be up to date and to be aware of what is happening on the economic front, specifically with regards to the markets and exchange rates?
Yeah, again, you know, firstly, when one travels overseas, it should be a planned travel that I've done over a period of time, because I can't decide to go and travel and take out an overdraft or a loan. You know, you're looking for trouble to do that. So if you've saved X amount and you've booked your air ticket and accommodation, you're taking a certain percentage of the money with you to spend, you need to understand, if you're going to Europe, that it's going to cost you, you know, probably 17, 18 rand for £1 or euro, you know, in that region. And so you need to be aware of that, so that you can plan and budget for the point that when you get there, you should have sufficient money to understand what your cost is going to be,
and
so
if
you can
you're
enjoy your holiday.
Traveling from South Africa, I think one has to also take the very volatile political and financial situation that we're in right now, because isn't it then best to plan for worst case scenario 100%. In terms of the exchange rate, as opposed to working on, okay, I'm leaving right now and the dollar rand exchange rate is pretty good. 100%. In 2 days time 100%. It could be at its absolute worst, because that is how volatile the markets are right now.
You know, just from my experience with the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have been buying dollars and pounds at a lower rate in anticipation of the coming weekend, and yeah, and that's a sane thing to do, because, you know, who knows what's going to happen next week. The dollar might be 19 rand, 18 rand, whatever the case is. You know, so it again, you know, it depends on your risk appetite. Does it bother me? Does it not bother me? Or I've only got X amount of money, so make sure that I can get the most out of it, so that when I go, I can have an enjoyable holiday. So yeah, I think, you know, one needs to be aware of what's happening around you. Similarly with your credit cards, if you go overseas, make sure that your bank knows that you're going to use it, because you might go over to wherever it is that you're abroad, and the bank doesn't know about it, and you try to use your card, and they stop it because they might think it's fraudulent transaction, because you.
So it's always good to communicate with your financial institutions.
Correct, yes. And also another thing is, you know, try and keep a mental note of what your balance should be, more or less, because you know, we spend, but you know, you should know, okay, I'm spending 1,000, I've got 10,000, I've got 9,000 left.
I sort of disagree with you there. I'm more of a write it down sort of person. The moment you come back from spending any money, have a little notepad, just write it down. This is what I've spent. It's so much easier to track.
You know, because
I mean, if you're on holiday, you've got so many things going on in your head. You don't necessarily want to be thinking about. But I think if we get ourselves into that mode, whether we are at home or whether we are on holiday, the moment we've spent something, just come back and write it down into the little book.
That's where the discipline comes in, you know. Like I said, if you go on holiday and you say, look, we've got 20,000 rand to spend, you should know what the 20,000 should give you in terms of where you're going, which country you're going to. And then you need to obviously work out daily this is for food, and it's got to be as a very disciplined approach to anything you do when it comes to finances. If you're not disciplined, you will end up, when you come back, paying off loans and overdrafts forever, because, you know, who knows what's going to happen with the interest rate because of the downgrading of the, you know, the recent downgrading of the economy in the country. So we still have to feel that pinch going forward, you know, and one needs to be aware of that. And, you know, a normal family, when there's kids, it's school fees, and so yeah, it's very challenging times, you know, where you go. So that's what I'm saying, when one goes on a holiday, make sure it's planned, and that you're not taking loans to go on holiday. If you can't, then you don't go, you know, because it's a want, you know. I want to do, you know, it's not something that's, you know, and a holiday mustn't impact on your normal household disposable income, because then it becomes problematic. Because once you get into the cycle of debt and interest, and you never get out of it. It's a very, and it could become demoralizing and create all kinds of problems, you know. So we talk about it, so one must be aware of it. We talk about it, so one must be disciplined when it comes to finances. And you need to stick to that, you know. And if you do, then you'll be able to enjoy your life carrying forward.